You can stand behind me for the whole thing if you want. Okay. So today we're very excited to start Netzach, Hod, and Yesod.
Woohoo!
No snow is going to stop us. Oh, so how do I?
I've never been in a Kabbalah class that talks about this, the bottom triad. It's
really?
It's very murky. Nobody ever talks about it.
Okay.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
So the bottom triad of the Sefirot, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and hopefully we'll be able to get to Malchut. There's a lot of different translations. Again, because this class is in English, we have to use various translations. We're going to use the word endurance for Netzach, the word adoration for Hod, which may or may not be a good translation, the word bonding for Yesod, and Malchut, royalty. Other terminologies that we need to know for today's class is we may refer to the triad as Nihim, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. That's very common to refer to them in mnemonics. The word Hoda'ah, meaning acknowledgement. The word Hiskashrus, sorry about that. The word Hiskashrus, which means bonding. Then there's a term called Mesirat Nefesh, which is total dedication of oneself to God. And perhaps we're also going to get into the idea of Koach Ma, which is the potential of what? Koach Ma, the potential of what? So now.
Which is kind of Chokhmah, right?
Chokhmah, well, exactly. So in Chassidus and in Kabbalah, the bottom four Sefirot, really the bottom triad of the Sefirot, are known by their acronym as Nihim. These are the Sefirot that take into consideration the outside world, so that the more inward Sefirot can fully express themselves. Until now, we've been talking about the more inward Sefirot. We've been talking about trying to dig the well, the character. Who am I? How do I relate to this world? But it's really more about who am I, more than how do I relate to this world. So now, in order for the internal Sefirot to be able to express themselves, we need the external Sefirot. The person, the giver, is considered on the inside. For example, let's pretend there's a teacher and a student. The teacher has to first realize that they are a teacher to a particular individual, which means if the teacher doesn't think that they're a teacher, then they're not a teacher. If you don't say, I am the teacher and you are the student, then I'm not the teacher and you're not the student. I'm going to even go a step further to say, you can't be a student unless I'm a teacher. It's very, very easy for us to say, we're all doing this together. It's going to be a big happy birthday here. Everything's wonderful. It's going to be collaborative. Collaborative is good, but someone has to be the teacher, the other one has to be the student. And I'll explain to you how this works, which means the teacher has to recognize that there is another world outside of themselves, the student. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, actually, I'm talking to myself right now, and it's all about me, and you happen to be listening to my personal study. What is that going to do for anyone? Absolutely nothing.
No.
Absolutely nothing. So once the teacher comes to the realization that he has to think of means to contract his knowledge in a way that is compatible to him without overwhelming the student, the teacher has to first feel good about the student so that the teacher's desire to share the information will be with joy and love. Each one of these steps are within the mind of the teacher. Before he says even one word to the student, the teacher has this whole preamble. I have to be able to contract my knowledge. I have to be able to create something that is going to be palpable to the mind and to the heart of the student. At the actual time when the teacher is ready to communicate, he has to deliberate as to the exact words, the exact phrases they're going to use so the student understands exactly what the teacher means. Which means, if the teacher is not going to go through the process of trying to find the words that the student will be able to comprehend, the teacher's not a teacher and the student's not a student. The teacher's not teaching and the student's not learning. I mean, yes, of course, we want to be able to uplift the student. We want to be able to stretch the knowledge of the student, which means it can't be too easy. But of course, it can't be. Imagine if my class right now was in Yiddish. I mean, very nice to have a class on Chassidus in Yiddish, but what's going to happen to everybody who's sitting around here? It's not going to really do anything for you. Yeah. So, in order for the teacher to understand that here there are people right in front of the teacher. Andrew. Hi, Andrew. You're on the camera. Hello. So in order for the teacher to realize that the teacher's not teaching himself, but rather there's people that are sitting around that are trying to understand the words of the teacher, that is the first step. And then the words that the teacher uses also have a tremendous effect on whether or not. It could be that I'm talking right now and you can't understand a word that I'm saying. I could be saying words and you're like, I don't know what he's saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, just my ability to ask that question automatically gives you the space to be able to say, oh yes, I understand what you're saying. So now, once this happens, once the teacher can be able to create no, I am the teacher, and now my job is to contract my knowledge in order to make it palpable for this particular class, for the student. Once this happens, the teacher begins bonding with the student. And together, the teacher and the student feel a sense of unity. Finally, the teacher forsakes their feelings. The teacher forsakes their position of supposed superiority, which we can get to in a different time, whether or not the teacher really is superior, and makes the student the primary focus, realizing that the student is totally committed and devoted to him, through submitting themselves to the teacher. Now, this causes the teacher great satisfaction, obviously, right? There's a great pleasure. The teacher is coming to the conclusion that it's my student who taught me more than anything else. As the Talmud says, that from my teachers I've learned, from my colleagues I learn more, but from my students I learn most. Because the truth is, the best way to teach, the best way to learn is to teach.
You believe that?
Yes, I do believe that. The best way to learn is to teach.
I agree.
Now, this is all a metaphor. The same details can be seen in a person's character. Once the inside, which we called the Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, the other triad that we spoke about last week, once the inside state is complete or is acknowledged, this becomes a total self-focus. The person is expressing their 3 intellectual faculties and their 3 emotional faculties, but they're still focusing on themselves. It's wonderful, it's great, because we need to be able to build character. We need to be able to dig the well. We need to be able to ask, who am I? Where am I? Why am I? What's my purpose in this world? That's important. If I'm not trying to become a better person, then what am I doing? But now we've done that. We've done that. We've developed the intellectual components. We've refined the emotional attributes. What happens now? We can become complacent. We can become haughty. We can become self-centered. Because we can realize, oh, I have chachma, I have bina, and now I acted on it, I have dat.
But isn't chachma humility?
Chachma started off with humility, but all of a sudden, after you had the Chachma and the Bina and the Dat experience, all of a sudden, I'm a Dat person.
I've always found that the monastic ideal, okay, the idea of the monk on the mountain, right?
Right, exactly.
As the model of enlightenment, let's say, is kind of what you're describing here. It's like, okay, perfect. You've reached a state of perfection. Good for you.
Exactly.
So
what is the monk on the mountain going to do for anybody?
That's right. You're not communicating that
Right?
perfectness with the world.
He's doing by not doing.
No, but the problem is like this.
He's not
And
doing it for anybody else.
The problem is like this.
Outside the community of monks.
Yeah, but what does it need to do with like if it's a specific thinking? It's like it's like individualism. It's like if everyone does it's in the concept of in a positive way that if everyone does for himself the good, you don't need to do for I won't need to do for you. Like we'll all be doing ourselves.
Really? But we're so reliant on each other. If we're all just sort of self-contained and separated from each other, and we're not giving.
Yeah, but at the end, when you do the best for yourself and you really work on yourself, and then eventually what ends up happening is you do share with others. But it's a belief that if you really start from yourself, and it's like
Agreed, but if you share with others, and we're continuing the triad.
Yeah, but you end up like helping others by even if you're working on yourself.
There's one example. There's one example in the Torah of this idea of the monk on the mountain, and that is a person named Lemach, right? He lived somewhere in between Noah and Abraham.
Okay, I know this story.
And he decided that the world was corrupt, and he decided that God put him in this world to make the world a better place. But he saw making the world a better place as walking with God. It says, the Torah says, he walked with God. And you know what God said? Huh? Chanoch. What did God say? You want to walk with me? Get out of here. That's not your purpose in this world. And he took him, and he died at a very young age compared to his contemporaries. I think 300.
It doesn't say that he died actually.
Yeah, it said that God took him back. Yeah, it says God took him back.
Which for tzaddik, the death is the greatest reward that you can get. So he did good.
The point, no, it's not. Because the point of being in this world, the point for the soul to come into this world is to actualize this world, to live in this world and to uplift this world.
It's very different from the lineage of Abraham.
Still to die.
No.
Like for tzaddik.
No.
Can I get my answer?
Yeah, sorry.
So isn't when you have when you're talking about Chachma, Bina, and all this, doesn't your ego grow at that point? Like when you're like
it will
grow.
It could
in a good way though. It will
or it can grow in a bad way. It depends on who you are.
But your ego will grow no matter what.
We don't want the ego to grow because the ego can become inflated if it grows.
When you're a teacher, do you have to be more of a zero, according to the teacher or to the student? Does the student have to be more of a zero, or does the teacher have to be more of a zero?
It's a really good question. Does a student have to become more of a zero or the teacher? Who's the zero in the relationship?
I think the teacher.
I think to some extent it has to be both, but at different points in time. Again, whenever you see these contradictions, it's because you're lacking the dimension of time. So the teacher has to start being full because he's going to give something. Right. So if he's not full, we're not talking about a relationship, right? So he's got to be full. However, then there has to be a moment where he subtracts himself and doesn't make it about him in order for the student to be able to come. The student has to start at zero. But then slowly he has to start putting of himself in the process.
That's a very interesting process. So you're saying the student starts at 0 and this teacher starts at 10, and eventually they both end up at 5.
Ideally.
I guess so, right? Because at the end of the class, if you really internalized these ideas, then I've shared, and I have to let go of a part of myself to allow you to be able to receive it. And then you have to let go of part of yourself to be the receiver.
Yeah, and you have to put parts of yourself
I don't
in
see
it.
why it goes from 10 to 5. Why can't it go from 0 to 10?
So
starting at 10, going down to 0.
Well, then
the numbers are just a metaphor, right?
But it's the idea.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
You're reaching the same place. You're not diluting anything.
Right, you're not diluting anything. It's very important because the teacher,
you're both growing in knowledge.
It's kind of like the flame, right? When you light the other flame, the first flame doesn't get diluted. So maybe the metaphor is more of a flame.
The 0 isn't it's the space that allows them to meet in the first place.
That's right.
Flame jumps to the bigger flame.
And the small flame jumps to the bigger flame. But can there be a teacher without a student? Yes, of course there can be a teacher without a student.
I thought
The
there
teacher
was.
can teach themselves.
They can teach themselves.
But it's not the purpose of
Read a
being in this
book.
world.
But
Look,
they're not progressing like what they have to be doing. They need the other person to change themselves by
absolutely. It's the process is the teacher-student process.
We're reenacting God creating the universe. God was perfect in
Yes,
himself, and
very
then he
good.
said, "Oh wait, it's not good enough to be perfect
That's
in
right.
myself. I have to share it
Because
with someone
if we
else."
say God is the teacher in the metaphor, then what was the point of creating the universe if there's no student? Exactly. Very good.
Is this right or wrong? Like with the teacher being like say such a zero, like his humiliation and his kindness and his love towards other people, like saying like, you know what, you're right, even though that you're wrong, like in a way, but you say you're right, like
Yes.
like, you're when you're putting more zeros on you, you're actually greater and higher and above.
What we're saying is that the teacher can very easily say, I'm great, I'm the teacher and you're the little student. Mm-hmm. Or the teacher can say, no, my purpose of being here at this moment is to be able to share with you. Now, there's two ways that I can share with you. Either I can say, I am the great and you are the low, and I know that you exist. Mm-hmm. But really, yes, exactly. I have mercy upon you. I have compassion towards you because you are the low student and I am the great teacher. So I will encapsulate all of my great knowledge. Exactly.
It's like God. It's like
what?
Isn't compassion good? Like you'll have compassion.
No, or you can say no. That my purpose at this moment is to make sure that you understand what we're saying.
But here's why a teacher that doesn't go towards humility and zero in the end is an incomplete teacher. Here's why.
Explain.
Because before you can learn something, you have to contract yourself, right? So if I'm going to learn something in any setting, I have to quiet myself down, I've got to create some space, and I've got to listen. So that's a precondition for transcending my state of knowledge.
What is the process of listening?
As a student, I'm talking about.
No, you said you have to take yourself out of it and listen.
Yeah.
What is that process of listening?
That process, the way I'm going to call it is that I'm creating space where new information can come in. And eventually, I'm going to combine it with my old information and see, sometimes I'm going to discard something, sometimes I'm going to update something, sometimes I'm going to simply leave something unresolved, whatever, exactly. Right? So that's all the after. But before all of that, I got to quiet. So the teacher, no matter how great the teacher is, okay, be the greatest teacher on earth, before the teacher reached that level, he would have had to go through a stage of having contracted yourself. Therefore, the teaching, the act of contracting yourself has to be a big part of every lesson. Because if you haven't imparted that onto the student, in a way, you haven't taught him the method by which he's going to grow eventually.
Do you follow that?
If you make it all about the teacher,
if it's all about the teacher, then there's no teaching. Yeah. It has to be not about the teacher, but it has to be about the teaching. That's the purpose. Questions. It's about the questions, right? Think about you think about what Isidore Rabbi said, that his mother would ask him every single day, "Haskafrekta gute kasha, did you ask a good question today?" The teaching itself is about the questioning. Mm-hmm. So, which means if I didn't in this class, in this process, incite a certain question in your heart and your mind, then I failed. Mm-hmm. I failed to connect with you. So I would say even more so, the teaching is about the relationship. There needs to be a relationship component that is in the teacher and the student. And that is why the Talmud says, from my students I learn most. However, when the person reaches the state of the four character traits known as Nihim, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut, he moves from focusing on the self to the point where he begins to think about others. The person begins to deliberate and ask themselves, how will people perceive me? Is what I'm saying and doing befitting a character that is intellectually and emotionally sound?
Kind of like scrutinizing.
Imagine like that teenager. There are moments in a child's development that the child starts realizing, what is everyone thinking? You know, when the kid comes home from school, oh, I don't want to wear that. I want to wear this because my friends. That is a process. That is a process of maturity where the child realizes, how do people perceive me?
It's funny that you start with that, because that, in today's dominant ideology, is supposed to be something that you don't care about. Because in order to be authentic, you have to do what you know is right, and what's the magic word? Not care what people think.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to not care what people think. If you listen to Oprah, it's you go like, don't care what people think. And of course there's.
But then you're missing a very important component. If you don't care what people think, you're missing the relation. I don't care what you think. No, I do care what you think. Not because I care what you think, because I care about you. That's why I care about what you think. Not because, you see, becomes all self-centered, because the not caring...
Without the teaching and self-centered.
What the Oprahs of the world are saying is that then don't care what other people think because you become selfish. You're saying, what do people think? No, that's not what we're saying. I care about what you think because I care about you.
But here's what Oprah is responding to.
It's a totally different perspective, though. Because then the focus is still on the other. It's not on yourself. If you say, I care about what you think about me, and the focus is still on yourself, then it's an unhealthy frame of mind.
No, because I'm going to be able to have a growth experience based on you. You are going to challenge me, and as a result of you challenging me, we are going to have a growth experience together.
No, but here's what Oprah's responding to. Oprah's responding to the opposite extreme, which is, I only live for other people. So I no longer have a mind of my own.
So let's entertain that. So let's say we have the opposite extreme. I only live for other people.
Yeah.
What happens to the person there? So we know what it looks like to be totally selfish.
The first six faculties that we talked about cannot even begin to be realized.
Exactly.
If all you care about is other people.
So you're never going to even get there if you allow the process to start and to move through. Then you're not even going to be able to get there. Which means if you went through Chachma, Bina, and Dat, and you went through Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, you're not going to end up there. When you get to the him, now we're starting to get to the other.
You'll have nothing authentic.
Why can't you go the other way around? Why can't you start with the other and then go up?
Well, think about it a second. Why can't you start with the other and then go up? Think about it.
First you need to connect.
But first of all, the answer in Kabbalah is that you can. I mean, the flow goes up and down when you have all six. But what we're talking about now is if you're only caring about what other people think, then your first six, your intellectual and emotional faculties are not really engaged. So you're staying in that external mode.
It's like I'm almost taking on we say the ideal is bitul, but really what I'm doing right now is I'm taking on myself. Like I'm including myself in myself.
Exactly.
Like the chanoch is like, I'm in the state of bitul and that's it. The
ideal person.
The ideal is a person that's like, yes, there's bittul, but then I take on this self, and then through this self, I'm able to interact with other people.
Exactly.
And then I can lead them to a state of bittul.
Exactly.
Again,
and the
bittul, 3 lines.
Do you know what they say? Where's the art?
All of this.
Where's the art? The art is in between the viewer and the painting, right?
Right. Obviously, nothing is happening.
That's an experience. But that's an experience. Right. But what they're saying is the art is experience. The relationship is what compels it.
It's Hillel resolved all of this in this 3 lines.
What did he say?
That's it. He said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? So that's where you start. However, if I am only for myself, what am I? And then if not now, then when? The dimension of time. It's all of these philosophical discussions we have are resolved in 3 lines. That is the genius of Hillel.
Thank you, Rabbi Hillel. So now let's take a step deeper. This entire type of self-assessment is considered a reflection that takes into consideration the outside world, including the personal self that has a part that is outside in comparison to its inside, which is its intellect and its emotions. Now, let's talk about the trait.
It's like your Venn diagram.
Very similar to the Venn diagram that I showed you before. Let's talk about the trait, the midah of Netzach. The midah of Netzach has several expressions. One is to be victorious. Netzach means victory. To be victorious over any obstacles that hinder doing what intellect and emotions say are correct. That's the first. So this includes, for example, the opposite of Gevura. Gevura feels that one doesn't deserve. Think about what Gevura says to the homeless person. I don't want you. You don't exist. What does Netzach say? Netzach says the following: I'm going to motivate my power of victory and prevail. The result being the person wins the war.
So it goes more on chesed, it tries to transform into the chesed.
That's right. Netzach is part of the row of chesed.
So that's what Netzach is.
And chachma.
Is the in between.
It's the next level of chesed.
Yeah.
Israel
Right?
from 1947 to 1972
Exactly.
was the Netzach period of
Now,
Jewish
that's
nation.
not only, Netzach is not only victory, because Netzach can't only be victory, and I'll explain why. It also means endurance. See, it's very, very easy to conquer. It's hard to maintain. So within Netzach, there needs to be both the conquering and the maintenance. That means that the everlasting impact that the quality of Netzach will have on character is the endurance level. All the other midot, all the other traits can fade away, but Netzach will endure. It is actually, if you look at it properly, when it comes to really becoming who we are and building our character, only Netzach can do it.
Netzach Yisroel lo yishaker.
Exactly.
What does that mean in English?
Even though I've translated it.
Try to translate it.
So the eternity of Israel, it's almost like it can't be doubted. Like lo yishaker, it can't be.
It can't be false.
Can't be false.
Is that when you think about
The
it?
Netzach, the victory, the endurance of Israel can't be false. Do you know what the proof is? The proof is that it's 2019 or 5779 and we're sitting here.
So
If Moses walked into the room right now, what would he say?
He would say, "Wow."
Pretty
He
impressive.
wouldn't know. He wouldn't understand any of it. If we took the midrash about him in Rabbi Akiva's base midrash seriously, he probably wouldn't understand anything.
No, but what he'd say is, wow, that's tefillin. God told me about the tefillin. That's a Torah scroll. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of similarities
Right.
in a different country, in a different place.
It'd be psychedelic work.
if
Totally
Moses,
trippy.
3,500 years later, Moses would have an existential experience seeing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
He'd say, wow, like,
We'd have a heck of an existential experience observing him.
no,
back then.
for sure. But would you say that Netzach would exist in our relationship with Moses if he walked into this room right now? Absolutely. There'd be an endurance level. It wouldn't be only victory. Yes, there would be a victory, but there'd also be an
I
endurance.
always find it
I would
so
pass
interesting.
out if he walked in here.
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
What if you didn't know it was him?
I'd also.
I always find it so fascinating the way Kabbalah conceives of these concepts, because here's the thing. This is where it's so logical in terms of the Netzach. It's that when you think of victory,
Yes.
okay, whatever it is, it could be the victory of an idea, right? It could be the victory of socialism. It could be the victory of free market capitalism. It could be the victory of compassion. It could be the victory of standards. It could be the victory of a million things, okay? However, the process by which you obtain the victory, right? So you go through something that let's call it metaphorically a war, right? It's that we confront adversity, there's other forces, and then this force is going to win out. Okay, step
Victory.
one. However, if you win, again, the dimension of time, if you win now, today, and 2-3 steps from now, 2-3 days from now, 2-3 weeks from now, the battle is lost, have you really won? You've had a little moment of...
You can win the war, lose the battle. You can use the
It's
battle,
just-
win
it's
the
just
war.
movement.
It's just
That's
movement.
right.
Exactly. It's just movement.
And that's where endurance...
It's
the
just
concept-
rowing.
That's
So
why the true
victory-
victory is the endurance. It's
Right?
not...
It's just the rowing.
Exactly. True victory is the endurance. True. It's very, very easy to conquer. It's very difficult.
Is that what it means
Yeah.
when one of the scriptures says nothing is new when you toil under the sun?
Yeah, it's King Solomon starts off. He says, "Ein chadash tachat hashemesh," right? There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
But it's more than there's nothing. What we're saying here
Bob
is
Marley
that
also said that.
huh?
Bob Marley also said
I don't
that.
know who was first, Bob Marley or King Solomon.
Well, he
I'm not
was
going to
right.
say.
He was King Solomon.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Well, they definitely worship King Solomon. That's for sure.
Okay. Okay, man. Let's
King
continue.
Solomon Bible.
Yes, it is King Solomon
For him,
Bible.
the whole Bible is King Solomon is the source of.
Bible, man. Okay. Now, let's go a step further because I don't think that's enough. You got the victory and endurance? The previous Rebbe told the following parable. He said, a king has many treasures that he's inherited from his ancestors. They never have been opened. The reason that they've never been opened is the king knows that someday there will be a situation in which he's going to have to open those treasures in order to save his life and in order to save his kingship. One day, it happens. He finds himself in the middle of a war threatening his existence. At that time, he opens the treasures and instructs his soldiers to take whatever they need to save him and to save the kingdom. This, the Rebbe says, is the true idea of Netzach. To activate that part of a person that will do anything and everything to achieve their true purpose.
I know what it means now.
One feels,
It's connected to
feels
the idea of
good.
endurance.
you feel
It feels good to know.
that in a war with one's character, there are obstacles. There's going to be obstacles from the inside. There's going to be obstacles from the outside. So using the last resort, which is the quality of Netzach, is going to assure victory. This is also going to cause that the victory will be enduring, since it comes from a place within that is very, very deep. It's so deep and concealed that it takes a war to reveal it. That's how deep and concealed it is. Therefore, once it's revealed and it's operating, it uses its own qualities. And these qualities are going to go beyond the daily experience. Which means actions taken yesterday or perceiving that one's character lacks refinement don't prevent someone from doing what they have to do.
But that's like sort of like who's a chassid, like someone who sins and the next day he can go in and
Exactly.
pray for like hours.
Exactly. So think about, and I mean, this is a very awkward example, but think about the thief that prays to God before they enter the house. What will you do to win the war? What will you do to be able to have victory? At what point? What motivation? I don't know. You see, we live in a world that's so complacent, that is so lazy to a certain extent, that we don't even think about these ideas. You ever have a moment in your life where you say, I'll do anything to get this? I mean, kids do that.
Yeah.
Kids will do that, right? You have a little baby who's crying and crying and crying for their candy. Or you have...
My son will do that to play Fortnite.
Or his son will do that to play Fortnite. So I think that at some, perhaps, if I can say so boldly, at some point, we had that within us. We had the true Netzach within us. But what happens? What happens is that whether it's a parent or a society comes along and says, you can't have it. I don't care. You can cry all you want. You can't have it. Do we, by saying that to our children, and I'm asking a question, I don't know if I have an answer for it, but do we, by saying that to our children, destroy a certain piece of their Netzach?
No.
A certain
I
piece
think
of their victory and endurance? I do think so.
Because we should be channeling it as opposed to just
So
stuffing it.
what would be, and I'm asking this out loud, I don't know the answer. I'm actually having, I'm broadcasting live as Dr. Asel would say.
That's why I want to add too.
Hold on a second. What would be a better way of parenting than saying, no, you can't have that candy?
This is the way I see it, okay? The way I see it is that behind even the desire for a candy, okay, there is something good. There is a desire to enjoy life. There's a desire to have energy. There are certain things inside even the most... The desire that is the worst expressed. In other words,
Right.
however, whatever the greatness of your desire, if you're expressing it in terms of eating candies all day, it's badly expressed, okay? But behind that, there's a desire for something good. I think the way to do it is that you would try to find those things within the desire that are good. And then you teach them how to express those elements, those good elements of the desire, in a better way. So in other words, you want energy? Well, it turns out that, and this is like super idealistic, right? But just to illustrate the point.
We're just saying.
Really, instead of
Just
eating
to
these
say.
candies,
Have
if
some protein bars.
you ate these like Brussels sprouts, you would get all the energy you want. The thing is like, I don't care. I hate Brussels sprouts. It's fine. So it's the beginning of a conversation. Then it's like, how do you find that medium, right? Maybe that medium comes in the form of a fruit, let's say, because it's sweet, but it also has fiber and it's also good for whatever. So that you would teach them that they have desires for a lot of good things, but they simply have to learn how to channel those desires into the worthy expressions. And in fact, Fortnite with my son, the reason my son is so, he exhibits some expressions of addiction when it comes to Fortnite. The reason Fortnite is so addictive is not because the game itself is so amazing. The reason it's so addictive is because through the game, he's connecting to his friends. So there are like 6, 7 friends. They're playing together. They're doing strategies together. So think about it. Really, what they all crave being together in a war
Exactly.
field where they can do strategies with each other. Cool. So you know what? Let's organize a basketball game. Let's go to the Y. Let's get 5, 6 of your friends, and let's go play against another team.
So
Whoop their
Fred,
butts.
what you did is you said you channeled.
You rechannel it.
You
You
rechannel the
object
Netzach.
of the energy.
Because let me
right.
even. I'm broadcasting live here. But what if we could say, Sasha, I really appreciate your determination.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate your Netzach. I really appreciate the fact that you have such a desire and a motivation to play Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
What if we said that? And he says, yes. So I want to know, I'm asking you, Sasha, how do I get that same determination on other things in your life? Because I think it's such a great quality and I don't want you to lose that quality.
I think you have to point them to the victorious paths in worthwhile activities. So
Exactly.
it's like, look, if you dominated math, okay, in your math competition this year, like the cool job you can go work and you can one day get into a neuroscience program, maybe, I don't know, right? How exciting is that? All this AI stuff you read in Time magazine, like that's exciting. You're gonna have to be victorious inside of sciences and inside of your studies to get there, right?
Exactly.
Or like you could make like an NCAA team in basketball. But you're gonna have to work on it. You're gonna have to be victorious at basketball. You have to, find a way to be more explosive, find a way to be more consistent, develop better ball handling. Like that's what you're gonna have to do to get there, right? Playing Fortnite isn't gonna allow you to have any kind of meaningful victory in real life, in reality, because the thing itself will consume you.
The question
But
is,
anything can consume you. Like you can become a basketball player, and the basketball game can consume you just as much as
Eventually,
Fortnite. Like it's just a question of what you think is positive, what you think is negative. Like,
Well,
like
but
if,
they're not
if
equal.
I feel like playing Fortnite is a meaningful experience, I'm connecting with my friends, and I feel like I'm actualizing myself. I don't see what the difference between that and playing basketball would be.
It could be different, but this is what's different about it. First of all, there are similarities. There are clear similarities, right? The person that is really becoming the best Fortnite player and that's overcoming himself in Fortnite and found a way even to monetize it and turn it into a multi-million-dollar career, as some Twitchers do, right? So for that person, maybe they express their Netzach productively through Fortnite, perhaps. But in terms of a kid that's 10 years old, okay, and it's still building the foundations of their life in terms of learning how to work hard and persevere and delay gratification, if you become addicted to Fortnite at that stage of your development, right, I would say that it's going to hurt your ability to get victories in fields that are worthwhile and that are more likely to give you an ongoing relationship with the world, as opposed to just like locking yourself up in a basement and playing a video game, right? So there is a difference.
So I
stretch out over time.
I would say that we have a good idea of what Netzach is now. Now hold on a second. We need the opposite extreme of Netzach. Now before I even get there, Hod. We're going to walk into Hod now. What is Hod? If Netzach is so powerful, victory, endurance, everything we've just spoken about, what is Hod?
The way I always describe it as contemplation. It's more the.
If Netzach is the horse, Hod is the chariot. Hod means adoration. Hod means devotion. both Netzach and Hod are the deliberating aspects within the person. Netzach deliberates by activating the sensation of victory. I must prevail. Hod deliberates based on what? Based on adoration, based on devotion. So let's go back to the teacher-student example. When the teacher adores the student, this causes the teacher to properly assess the students and not overwhelm the students and cause damage. When the parent truly adores the child, the parent is going to assess the child and do what's best for the child and not overwhelm the child. This can only be realized if the teacher truly cares for the students.
Is Hod on the side of Gevurah? Because that
Hod
would make sense.
is on the side of Gevurah.
So it plays a similar function as Gevurah.
Very
as
similar.
reconnecting us to the
Exactly.
intellectual dimension.
Exactly. This adoration is one of the aspects of Hod. The other aspect of Hod, hold on a second, is devotion. When the teacher realizes the compliance and the obedience that the student actually has, or that the student has the potential to devote themselves to the teacher, this causes the teacher to communicate very carefully, and the teacher is able to communicate the right amount of information.
So is it maintenance in like short term?
No, because Netzach has the endurance, has the maintenance. This is not maintenance.
It almost sounds like maintenance to me because
What is the function of Hod?
It's the channel.
More, tell me more. Unpack the word channel.
pipeline.
Unpack it.
To give a direction.
It's the pipeline for Netzach to go to Hod.
Netzach, there's the problem. Like Andrew just said, Netzach has a problem. Netzach, when you are in war, you don't always have the ability to be accurate. It's a problem. It's something that Israel tries very hard to do, right? And it's very difficult to be humane.
It's like love your fellow man as yourself. Like you can try, but really you have to give it exactly what he needs, not what you.
Exactly. When people say the golden rule is treat everyone how you want to be treated, well, what if you don't want to be treated well? That's not a golden rule.
That's why Hillel's rule is better.
That's right. Hillel's rule is much better.
No, but it's in the sense that like I'm thirsty and you're hungry.
Right.
And if I want to love you like I love myself and I'm thirsty, I'm gonna give you a bunch of water, but you're not thirsty. You want bread, so I can't love you like the way I love myself. But I have to. I do, but it's.
Exactly. It's very. It's if you want to love someone like you love yourself. Well, there's two things. Number one is you're being unrealistic because it's almost impossible to love someone as much as you love yourself. No one is going to. I mean, maybe your mom can love you as much as she loves herself, or maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, more.
No more.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
If you have that kind of mom,
Yeah.
I do.
then you're lucky.
But
Most Jews do.
It's funny how so when you're at war, you want victory. All you want is victory. You can be blinded, right? So when you think
Yeah.
about it, it's like in a sense, it's the ends justify the means. It's hard to be discerning when you are singularly focused on victory, right? You're not going to discern. So there's reaching a military objective, and then there's minimizing collateral damage, right? The Netzach is achieving the military objective. I'm not winning. It doesn't matter,
Seems
collateral
like-
damage or not. I'm losing.
Seems like Netzach is more the means and Hod the ends.
Exactly. Like Netzach is more the means justify the ends, and Hod is more like time out. Let's be discerning here. Are we picking the appropriate means? Right? It's a little bit more.
Or
like
are we
Gevurah.
having the right war?
Are we having the right war? It's like, no, don't ask yourself all these questions. Just
Right.
win the war.
Should I be playing Fortnite or should I be playing basketball?
Exactly.
That's
So
right.
The energy to do either of them is
Netzach-
Netzach, but the Hod is-
Netzach wants to
Right.
just
It's
do, wants to win. Hod is like, where you going, dude?
It's always like,
What
wait
are
a
you
minute.
doing?
It's the wait a minute, Sefirot.
Yes.
It's like-
Those are my favorite ones.
Right.
I thought Netzach was the one.
Wait,
that-
stop and think. Stop and think.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
so-
don't forget, but sometimes people stop to think and forget to start.
But
Exactly.
So stop and think
Paralysis
and
by
then
analysis.
paralysis by
But
analysis.
doesn't it go towards the good inclination though? like in victory.
No, not.
It gets what it wants.
No,
Either
because
way.
when you're in a war, if you're a soldier in war, you don't have the time to think about it. You don't have the ability. The enemy is coming at you and they're shooting. You don't have to think. You have to just move.
Although
So
it's
almost
very
like
unique
pride.
actually.
It's just pride then.
But what
but-
happens if the enemy is really your friend?
But in Tzahal, you know that Tzahal is very, very unique in that it imposes upon each individual foot soldier, the smallest, the lowest of the low, imposes on them when they have military tribunals. Okay, they impose on them every single soldier. If they get, you're supposed to follow orders as a soldier, right? It's like it's not my fault. My commander told me to do it. But they tell every single soldier, if there are orders that are clearly illegal, you have an obligation to not follow them. And if you follow them, you're legally responsible in front of a military court-martial. It's very, very unique in the sense that every single soldier is viewed as a moral agent. Now, we understand that for a soldier, it's Netzach. You're going to have to listen to your commander, like 99.9% of the time. However, if your commander gives you a clearly illegal, and then of course it's like, what is a clearly illegal? Well, go out and murder these 40 children just because we have to win the war. Whoa, this is clearly illegal. If you carry out the order, you are legally responsible because you followed a clearly illegal. So every single soldier has to exercise a little bit of conscience.
So I think it's a very good example. I think, and what you're saying here is that Hod is the moral conscience in the war.
It's like the ends. I just followed orders.
That's right. You can't say to Netzach, I just followed orders. You can't say that because that's not fair. Because you need to have an internal compass, and Hod becomes that internal compass. Now, let's continue this analogy and try to understand. Let's go back to the teacher and the student. These two feelings that the teacher has towards the student can also be found in the student's feelings towards the teacher. It's not just the Hod the teacher has towards the students. It's the student has to have Hod towards the teacher. First, the student develops an adoration and a love for the teacher. Sometimes this feeling is motivated by the teacher, and sometimes this feeling is motivated by the student's natural feelings towards the teacher. Now, the second aspect of Hod is as reflected by the student towards the teacher is the devotion and the obedience that the student has. These two aspects of Hod shed light on our relationship with God. How does this work? First, we develop the character to having a feeling of love and adoration towards God. That's the beginning. We first develop the character of love and adoration towards Hashem. This attraction is based on the recognition that God is the king, and therefore, since God is the king, God is beloved. Next follows a feeling of devotion through observing Hashem's mitzvot, Hashem's commands and directives. Chassidus explains that Hod comes from the word hoda'ah, which means acknowledgement. When we acknowledge God as the master of our personal universe, and that God desires this devotion, this in turn will activate a feeling of love, a feeling of adoration, a feeling of devotion within a person's heart, resulting in a total devotion to God. This is what Hod is. This is what Hoda'ah is. Now, you follow what Hod? We're good with Hod? Mm-hmm. Here's the problem with Hod. This deliberation that Netzach and Hod provide, they're not enough to guarantee an everlasting impact on the character.
Depends on the human, I guess.
It's only because of the midah, the trait called Yesod. What is Yesod? We call it bonding.
Absolute love and kindness.
That a person's devotion to God or to another person is guaranteed. In Hasidus or in Kabbalah, there's a unique emphasis on this idea. The test used to see if a chassid, with the chassidim, a chassid is truly dedicated to his or her Rebbe is to analyze what we call hiskashrus. What is hiskashrus? The bond to the Rebbe. This notion of hiskashrus is the ultimate bond between a chassid and a Rebbe. It transcends all barriers. It transcends all limitations, whether it be fire or water. The chassid is prepared to do everything. The chassid is prepared to do anything for the Rebbe. Needless to say, obviously only those things permitted by Torah. So here we have hiskashrus. This true bond goes beyond the letter of the law. Let me give you an example. In the 20s and 30s, the KGB in communist Russia would assign special surveillance agents to Jews who had prayer services and Torah classes in their homes. The previous Rebbe, who was the leader of the Chabad community at the time, demanded that his Hasidim not be scared and continue going about their business spreading Torah throughout the former Soviet Union. Many of his contemporaries disagreed because it would mean death. They felt that the Torah did not require obedience that would put people's lives in danger. The Rebbe was very aware of this. However, he felt that true hiskashrus between a chassid and a Rebbe meant to go the extra mile to fulfill the Rebbe's desires. It was quite controversial at the time amongst his contemporaries. Therefore, just as he, the Rebbe, put his life on the line, he demanded the same of his chassidim. So he wasn't saying you do it, he was saying we, I, the Rebbe, I'm doing it also. I am putting my life on the line to keep Judaism alive in the former Soviet Union. And you too, because you are a chassid and your hiskashrus, your bond with me is so strong that we, as a community, are going to put our lives on the line, even if it means death. We're going to spread Judaism and Torah in the former Soviet Union. The chassid was glad that he had an opportunity to do what the Rebbe wanted. He wanted to do it. He felt that when he was chosen by the Rebbe to be in this position, his hiskashrus, his bonds with the Rebbe was being strengthened. Now, this is the unique quality of Yesod. Yesod reveals the person's deep connection to God.
It's the same way, like, so much more so with Hashem, that he's compassionate, we should be compassionate.
Exactly.
Is this where you see his light more?
No, what we're saying is that Hashem would never tell us to do something that that Hashem wouldn't do himself. He being the husband in our relationship.
Well, from what I heard, it almost sounds like you're gonna do it, like go in this, like I'm giving my life up, and you're gonna give your life up too. So
but it's not that I'm giving my life up and you're gonna give it. It's that we have hiskashrus. We have a bond.
Mutual guarantee, and it's like almost saying like
so,
one man, one heart.
Let's go back to human relationships. Similar devotion can be found, but first go back to the example, let's say, of the teacher and the student. If the teacher wants their relationship with the student to be eternal, it's not adequate that the deliberation used in communicating information be in a manner that just doesn't overwhelm the student. Rather, the teacher must bond themselves to the student. This bonding has many different forms. But the primary aspect is the mindset of the teacher that says, I'm yours and you're mine. When the student feels this radiance coming from the teacher, the student reciprocates, and that bond lasts forever. So in human relationships, it's hiskashrus, it's bonding, that is the element within the character that causes relationships to last. This is the secret of relationships. This is the secret of marriage as well. When two people have many things in common, there's no bonding. This relationship is not going to last. Bonding in this scenario means to realize that the relationship's foundation is more than we complement each other. The essence of bonding is to have a strong focus on each other, realizing that without each other, neither is complete. In other words, we are two halves that are uniting. That is the power of bonding. The power of bonding is that we are not complete. There's something missing. Not only is there something missing in my life, there is a piece of me that is missing without you. I am only half a person without you. The best version of myself without you is 50%. It's the best version of myself. And I'm not even the best version of myself. Once you come into the picture, once I bond with you, you not only, and we can even talk about it in selfish terms, you become the only way that I can reach the 100%. That's how connected we are. Now, with regards to personal character traits, Yesod is the element that bonds people to God and to the true essence within. In regard to God, Yesod would be the concept of what we call Mesirat Nefesh, total dedication of oneself to God. When going back to the former Soviet Union and the Rebbe's directives that the Hasidim should give up their lives to spread Torah, if that's what it takes, the Rebbe says, if that's what it takes on behalf of Yiddishkeit, on behalf of Judaism, then it's our responsibility to do it. If that's what it takes. And I want to tell you, the sad part of the story is that many of the Hasidim did end up giving up their lives. Actually, the room full of Hasidim that the Rebbe asked, most of them did not survive. And those who did survive were brutally tortured, including the Rebbe himself.
But does the Rebbe,
After that, the Rebbe never walked again.
Really? Wow. Did the Rebbe enter Auschwitz at all?
It's not a. I don't want to go through. We can go through a whole class just on the stories and the things that happened. It's an amazing. It is amazing. The previous Rebbe was such an amazing writer, and he wrote all of his stories. And I urge you. There's a number of translations now in English of his story, his diaries. The stories are unbelievable. The way he describes what was going on there.
For the past week, that's all I've been really doing.
So the concept of Yesod within would be that feeling that there's no way that I can waive my responsibility to do what I know is correct. It is my bond to the truth that makes me realize that without being truthful, I'm selling myself. Without being truthful, I'm selling myself. This sensation comes directly from the attribute of Yesod. I realize that without the truth, I'm only half, and my other half is missing. The bond to truth solidifies and secures my whole being, making it possible to assert character in a healthy way. I need Yesod in order to be in a relationship. I need bonding. I need to know that me without my significant other is not even 50%. In best case scenario, if I was a perfect version of myself, it would be 50%. And it's not even 50%.
But again, this goes against, I would call, the ruling ideology of the times, which is, you don't need anybody else.
Right.
You are perfect just the way you are. And you have to be self-sustainable and complete in yourself as an individual. And if you are, then why do you need others? Others just ask things. They have their own agendas. They have their own needs. You don't need to bond in order to realize yourself at the highest level of that particular ideal.
Right.
And it's interesting that I think no matter how you define self-realization, I think it's pretty safe to say it's always going to be more expansive, and it's always going to be more ultimately, what's the right word here? It's always going to be ultimately a greater set of relationships if it includes the other, if it includes bonding, if it includes relationship.
That's really what realization is.
I think that's why
You're not just some isolated individual, and there's only me and no one else. It's like I live in a web of connections with everyone else.
And that the same goes even if you look at the most materialistic scientific endeavor, okay? Realization would involve, people give the example of Einstein all the time. He came in and he told everybody they were wrong. No, in a sense, he came in and he revolutionized everybody's understanding of science, right? He was part of that community of the mind. And in a way, there was a deep bonding at that level.
I mean, that was like the big difference between like alchemy and chemistry and like science in general, is that alchemists would oftentimes do their experiments and not want to share their findings with someone else. But the scientific mind is, no, not only do I want to do my own research, but I want to share my research with others. And through that,
you were nothing without the community.
Right, without the collaboration, we wouldn't get anywhere.
Very interesting. Yeah.
That's like one of the fundamental discoveries of science. Like, the more we look into ourselves, the more we see everything else. Like, we're all connected. This is the most obvious truth, and yet
it's tough. From an individual perspective,
it's like
hard
the very
to see.
famous joke. Like, there are two fish swimming in a fish pool, and an older fish swims by and says like, "How's the water?" And the two younger fish look at each other and say, "What's water?" It's sort of the same thing. Like, we live in a world of interconnection. Yet we always
Deep interconnection.
I mean, it's fundamental, and yet we always want to say, "Oh, it's just us."
Well, it's way easier to live your life in denial of that reality, right?
Well, because that's how I create myself.
Yeah. So, but that's only one step in the process of, right, and the Yesod ideal. I find it very interesting how we got there. We get there from Netzach, which is victory at all costs. You find inside of you the resources, whatever resources it takes. So you're very, very connected to, when you look again at the Chokhmah and the Chesed, it's a little bit of that ethic of like, you're being intuitive and you're engaging your emotional body. In a sense, I see that whole line. I know that it's the emotional can be viewed like this, but the emotional can also be viewed left to right, in the sense that, Chokhmah, Chesed, and Netzach are all kind of like more connected to the emotions of, they're a bit more intuitive, and it's very important. You need that. If you don't have that, you can't reach the highest ideal of Yesod, right? If you have only Hud, all you have is this adoration of something. But if you have adoration,
part of me is analysis, like the paralysis of analysis again.
Paralysis of analysis. It's like, okay, you're adoring this thing, but in a way, you're not there.
Fantastic
right?
line.
And it's when we go back, it's very. When you go back to
Andrew, have a good day.
The concept of, when you go back to the concept of taiva, okay, of like that unique desire of the individual, okay, without the connection to the emotional self, the self is not there, really, right? It's an ideal. It's a sterile ideal at some point.
Yeah.
You adore something else, you're denying the connection of the self and the other. The thing that you're adoring is perfect, and I'm just completely small and insignificant. It's a platonic ideal somewhere else, but it's also important because that's where the intellect can express itself. And that's where.
So let's just kind of conclude this this class here today. I want to just get an idea of what is your main takeaway. We talked about Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Three very powerful ideas that generally are not spoken about, like you said. It's not this triad is not spoken about generally. So what do you take out of it? What are you taking home with you today?
So much. I mean,
let's encapsulate. Let's get some nuggets out of this class here.
No, I think it's kind of like the flow that we were following. So then we have Hud, which is kind of like a re-engagement of the intellectual faculties of, wait a minute, you just want to win, but wait a minute. Are you winning at the right thing? Are you winning in the right way? And then you start reconnecting with the good. What is the good in terms of the Sechel al pi midot, right? What the intellect kind of determines. But then, in order to create that everlasting bond, that is not enough. That knowledge is not enough. You need to come back of the emotional self.
That's right.
And you need a bonding with the good. And when you can uniquely and emotionally
do you see how that works?
Bond with the good, that connection is something that is eternal.
Do you see how the triad works?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You need all of it. Marcus, what's your takeaway? What's your takeaway?
You saw a kick spot, I think.
I'm not sure what my takeaway is.
Okay.
I think it's
That's already good.
Yeah, I think I'm in a state of Kabbalah right now. I'm in a state of receiving, not in a state of mashpia. I can't really be mashpia right now. I can only be in a state of Kabbalah. So.
Okay.
Well,
Leah, what's your takeaway?
I think all these things we already like kind of know them, and it's good that we're putting words on them.
Right.
But I think like we know what this. We all felt this thing like Netzach. We all felt this. We all know what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And we all experienced it even. So I think that these are all things, and then even in that, I think we all experienced. They're all things that we experienced.
Well,
so
I think that
nothing new,
by
really.
by naming it, you often understand it.
You're
You
naming
often
it, and we're giving it. It's like you can't fool yourself after that by not doing it.
That's
now,
right.
You can call yourself out on it and being like, okay, now I'm like I'm not using HUD. Like I'm just doing Netzach, and I'm not looking at what you said, like the rest.
That's right.
And then you call yourself out on it, which is really good, but it's all things that we kind of know intuitively or by experience. And I guess by learning vocabulary to go with it, we can live with it more.
But if we are aiming for the practice of Yesod, let's say,
Well,
okay?
Sorry.
If we're aiming for the practice of Yesod, okay? So, and the practice of, Dat, the practice of Tiferet, the practice of Yesod, and the practice of Malchut, right? If we're aiming for the practice of that, human beings are such that we can only really focus on a limited number of things at a particular point in time. All it takes is one little emotion, and I'm going to be like locked into this thing here, and I don't see anything else, right? Sure. But the thing is, this central column includes ideals that are oftentimes expressed as opposites, okay? But it includes a synthesis of these opposites and then the introduction of a new dimension as well.
A complete objective synthesis. It's not like
That's right.
out of you.
It's a synthesis, and then it's adding a new dimension, and that's what determines the path, right? And the thing is, to practice Yesod properly, so I know what Yesod is, and I know what Hod is. I know what both of them are separately. Yeah, they're opposites. Sometimes I feel like this, sometimes I feel like this, right? But in order to practice Yesod, I believe you have to consciously, in some way, achieve that synthesis and that elevation of the new dimension of Yesod. And to do that, to practice.
You need to find that. It's like the muscle that you gave with the two directors that are working for the same president. Stop. There's a flash on my face.
Sorry.
They're the two directors that were working for the president, and they were both arguing, and until they realized that they're working for the same person, then that it didn't happen. But it's like it is going to be a conscious choice, and that's why we need to name it, so we can be like, this is what I'm doing right now, and this is what I should be doing right now instead. And so
I have good news for you. There's another element of all of this, and it's called the Malchut. And we're just going to spend an entire class next week just talking about Malchut.
Can you plant a seed now?
Huh?
Can you plant a seed?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you one thing about Malchut, and it's going to blow your mind. Remember, we're talking about the male and female. In relation to Malchut, all of the others are male, and Malchut is female. In relation to Malchut, just to give you an idea of the male versus So everything we've learned until now is masculine in relation to Malchut.
Right. It's also must be on the top.
That's right.
So the end result is female.
I think my takeaway is that clearly that I'm unconsciously very much in touch with my tradition, because I've been doing a lot of writing lately.
Yeah.
Am I being taped right now?
You are.
I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and just like
Weigh your words carefully.
yeah, exactly. Although I always try and weigh them carefully, but especially now. I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and now I'm beginning to see the Jewish themes in my writing that I didn't even realize were there to begin with after being in this class.
So much part of you.
It's just such a part of me. I was at my grandmother's this past weekend, and I was sharing some of my poetry with her and my great aunt, who's 98, 99, and she walked away. My great aunt walked away, and she said, "The very reminiscent of Jewish literature." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And now, like being in this class right here, right now, it makes sense.
It's amazing.
that's really cool.
Good, Marcus. Amazing.
I mean,
I
can share one with you.
I would
Just
love-
we were talking about Netzach.
For sure. We love to hear it.
Yes.
We get some Marcus poetry in our
Yeah,
class.
I mean, I write so many of them, so
Poetry.
I have to 1 second. So if you're on Facebook, people are on Facebook. So if you look in the top where it says it always says what's on your mind, Marcus, right? It says it says that. Yeah. So I wrote on Facebook. So it says, what's on your mind, Marcus? That's Facebook asking me, and then I responded, much is on my mind, Facebook. It's knotted in thought, the sticky, icky thoughts, the sordid, morbid scapes, the fiendish, meanish waves, the cruel, gruel, root-tide gnawing the skeletal wallows of former days, sucking thorough those sorrow bones for the burrowed marrow of tomorrow. But inside moaning groan, faithful I intone, the hidden hallowed rhythm of the row, rowing ahead of inky nights, rowing ahead of heavy days, rowing ahead of upset and regret, rowing ahead of shame and slight and name, rowing ahead of tidal, suicidal, idle obsessions, rowing ahead to horizons unspent, waiting to be met. Thank you for asking.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Like, that's Netzach.
That is Netzach.
That's just rowing.
True.
It's moving forward.
It's true.
It's beautiful.
That was
Nice,
beautiful.
Marcus.
Yes.
It's funny because as you were saying the words, I was hearing the connection with that whole line of Chochmah, Chesed,
And-
Netzach.
Yeah.
That was
exactly.
the line. That was that was the column that was activated throughout your entire poem. And it might, like, as soon as you started, I'm like, we need some Bina here. But it's a beautiful expression of the whole, right? And you see how each Sephira can be the ultimate point of a certain process, right? Because if you're
It's definitely one-sided.
yeah, but think about it. If you're dealing with an environment that is constricting
Right,
and that is
you need that
controlling you,
expansion.
you need that victory. Like, that victory is your meaning at that particular point in time.
That's right.
It is the top of the pyramid, right?
Yeah.
But in another way, it's the beginning of another set of pyramids
Right,
that you haven't even
there's
started,
infinite
right?
number of pyramids.
It's like there's a great line by Bob Dylan in one of his songs. He goes about a funny old world that's strumming along. He goes, it seems tired and it's hungry. It's tired and it's poor. And then he goes, it feels like it's dying and it's hardly been born. Right? Like, you get to the end of a process. And really,
And you realize
you're
that-
at the pre-beginning of the whole entire of another process.
Like, it's like you're going in circles, but like it's not like you're not a flat circle. It's a upward spot.
Upward cylindrical circle. Yeah.
I'm honestly excited for you to learn Malchus next week, because I think that it's going to bring a lot of these ideas and it's going to bring them all home for you. So I'm excited for that. And we're going to go on to Talmud right now. We're actually finishing the chapter of Talmud. For those of you who can't make it here and you're still watching, I'm gonna broadcast it from Chabad NDG's page, not from this page, because I want to finish the chapter today, because we're doing a siyum, we're doing a conclusion on this chapter of Talmud this Shabbat morning. So.
Oh wow. I'm actually